like now to start to invite the speakers to come up. And first up is Mr. Barry Jones, who is chairman of Stand Up for Marriage. Barry, may I ask you please to take the podium?
I have about 9 minutes of talk to get into 8, so it will have to be a little fast. Why it's okay to vote no. This referendum boils down to a simple consideration: what marriage is and what marriage is not, and we need to get it right. We may decide mainly with the heart or mainly with the head. Which we use may give a different outcome. The emotions usually change. Reason does not. It is steady. That's the difference. Reason really should decide this. What is marriage? Marriage inheres in human nature as male and female. It is inherently based on gender. This is essential to what marriage is. If there's no gender difference, there can be no marriage. It's that simple. And that's one way to decide the matter. All arguments about so-called marriage equality fall to the ground on this simple point of gender difference being essential to what marriage is. This is not opinion, it is just human nature. Marriage has been well described as the comprehensive union of man and woman, physical, emotional, even spiritual union. The primary relationship between man and woman in marriage is, of course, as husband and wife, and this makes it a marriage. And it takes a lifetime of marriage to realize this. Every good marriage knows the truth of it, and I've had 35 years' experience so far. Marriage has a basic social function. In every society, its basic purpose includes procreation, family life, and the succession of generations. Society is utterly dependent on these, and this is why the state takes an interest in every marriage. This gives rise to a secondary relationship, that of father and mother to their children. These too also require gender difference. Again, this is not opinion, it is a matter of human nature. No matter how loving, no matter how committed, no matter how sincere, no same-sex relationship can fulfill either the meaning of marriage based on gender difference or the basic social purpose or function of marriage also based on gender difference. In other words, there is no such thing as same-sex marriage. There are same-sex relationships, of course there are. But no same-sex relationship, as I've just said, can ever be marriage, no matter how much some people might wish it to be otherwise. And this is not opinion, it is a matter of human nature. It stands to reason. Well, can marriage be changed then to allow same-sex couples to marry? A good question. This brings us to a fine philosophical point of high importance. Marriage itself is antecedent to all positive law. It inheres in human nature, just like family does. This means that marriage itself cannot be changed. No one has authority to change it or the competence to change it. This may come as a surprise, but it is true, and it stands to reason. Marriage cannot be changed by anyone. But, you will say, we have the vote, so we have the power to change things if we want to, don't we? So why not change marriage to allow same-sex couples to marry? What happens if we do? What happens is that marriage itself resists change and withdraws completely rather than change, because it cannot change. This is what being antecedent and superior to all man-made law means. It has real and substantive meaning. Marriage will brook no change whatsoever. But a determined electorate may vote to change marriage from what it is, based on gender difference, to what it is not, based on gender neutrality. If it does, marriage itself will be replaced by something else which is no longer marriage, a counterfeit, an artificial or make-believe thing having the name of marriage, but which itself can never be marriage. In voting for the fiction of same-sex marriage, marriage herself is effectively destroyed over a period of time for everyone, and that is a colossal price to pay. Nature will not be thwarted. If we are arrogant or ignorant enough to choose to change what natural law and reason tells us cannot be changed, then we lose the very thing we prize most highly, which is marriage itself, and everyone loses it. This is the essential flaw and untruth at the very heart of the whole Yes campaign, and this cannot be refuted. You can argue it, but it cannot be refuted because it happens to be true. It is also true that there is no such thing as marriage equality in the sense proposed by this referendum. I'm all for marriage equality in the true sense, because marriage equality as proposed by this referendum is impossible. Equals must have equality. Of course they must. The Constitution in Article 40 says this: all citizens, that's everyone, shall as human persons be held equal before the law. So we already have equality, all of us. Why do we ignore this? It then goes on to say, the same article, this shall not be held to mean that the state shall not in its enactments have due regard to differences of capacity, physical and moral, and of social capacity. Note this, differences in social capacity should be taken into account. Everyone is for equality, but no reasonable person will claim that a man-man relationship or a woman-woman one is functionally the same and no different from a man-woman relationship. The two are distinct and different. To think otherwise is to deceive oneself. To pretend the two are the same is foolish. To insert this pretense into the Constitution invites harmful consequences. To risk these by voting yes is reckless. Now, no one intends to destroy marriage when they decide to vote yes. They mean only to do what seems to them to be right. Of course, everyone wants to do what's right. But if you have been hoodwinked into voting yes by falsehoods and false reasoning, neither of which in this referendum are easy to spot, then marriage itself will be lost in course of time. Likewise, will family as we know it be lost. And because these are the basic building blocks of society, the whole structure and fabric of society itself and its cohesion will be undermined. This too stands to reason. Why risk social breakdown for something that doesn't exist? This referendum boils down then to redefining marriage from what it is and always will be to what it is not and never can be. And no amount of emotional talk about equality, inclusion, acceptance, and so on can alter this fundamental truth. Voting no upholds what marriage is. Voting yes does the opposite. Thank you.